The summer sun beat down on Clara Lawson's back as she stumbled through the dusty streets of Sheridan, Wyoming, her worn boots barely keeping her upright. She had walked 3 miles from the farmstead where she had buried her husband 2 weeks prior, carrying nothing but a small leather satchel and the weight of exhaustion that seemed to have settled into her very bones. The year was 1883, and at 24 years old, Clara felt ancient. She pushed open the door of the general store, the bell chiming above her head. The proprietor, an elderly man with wire-rimmed spectacles, looked up from his ledger and frowned at her disheveled appearance. Her dark hair had come loose from its pins, her calico dress was dusty and stained, and her face bore the gaunt look of someone who had not eaten properly in days. "Can I help you, miss?" he asked, his tone wary. "I need work," Clara said, her voice hoarse. "Any work. I can cook, clean, mend clothes. I am strong, or at least I was." The proprietor shook his head slowly. "Times are hard, miss. Most folks do their own work around here. You might try the saloon, but—" he paused, looking her over. "That is not the kind of work for a respectable woman." Clara felt her shoulders sag. She had heard the same response at the boarding house, the hotel, and the seamstress shop. Sheridan was a growing town, but there was little opportunity for a widow with no family and no prospects. She thanked the man quietly and stepped back into the relentless heat. The street was busy with afternoon traffic. Horses kicked up dust as wagons rolled past, and men in wide-brimmed hats conducted their business with loud voices and hearty handshakes. Clara stood on the wooden sidewalk, swaying slightly, and wondered how much longer she could keep going. Her head felt light, and dark spots danced at the edges of her vision. She did not realize she was falling until strong arms caught her. "Whoa there," a deep voice said. "I have got you." Clara blinked up at the man who had caught her. He was tall, with sun-bronzed skin and dark hair that curled slightly beneath his hat. His eyes were a striking shade of green, and concern creased his brow as he steadied her. He looked to be in his mid-20s, with the lean, muscular build of someone who spent his days working hard under the open sky. "Thank you," Clara managed, trying to pull away. "I am fine." "You are about as fine as a 3-legged horse, madam," the man said gently. "When did you last eat?" Clara could not remember. Yesterday, the day before. She had sold most of her provisions to pay for her husband's burial. "I am managing," she said stubbornly. The cowboy, still holding her elbow to keep her upright, shook his head. "Come on. There is a restaurant just down the street." "You need food." "I cannot afford it," Clara said, the admission burning her throat with shame. "Good thing I can, then," he replied, guiding her down the sidewalk before she could protest further. The restaurant was small but clean, with checkered tablecloths and the smell of roasting meat hanging heavy in the air. The cowboy led her to a corner table and pulled out a chair. Clara sank into it gratefully, her legs trembling with relief. "I am Adam Rivers," the cowboy said, removing his hat and setting it on the empty chair beside him. "I work at the Double J Ranch about 10 miles north of town." "Clara Lawson," she replied quietly. Adam signaled to the waitress, a plump woman with a kind face. "Bring us 2 plates of whatever you have got hot and coffee, strong coffee." When the waitress left, Adam leaned back in his chair and studied Clara with those keen green eyes. "You are new to Sheridan." It was not a question, but Clara nodded anyway. "I came from a homestead east of here. My husband passed 2 weeks ago, cholera." "I am sorry," Adam said, and the sincerity in his voice made Clara's eyes sting with unshed tears. "He was a good man," she said softly, "but he was sick even before the cholera took him. We had only been married 8 months. We came west with such hope, such plans." She stopped, swallowing hard. "Now I am alone and I have nothing. The waitress returned with 2 steaming plates of beef, potatoes, and beans, along with thick slices of bread and 2 cups of coffee. The smell made Clara's stomach clench painfully. She picked up her fork with shaking hands and took a small bite. The food was simple but delicious, and she had to force herself to eat slowly. Adam watched her with a mixture of concern and something else she could not quite identify. "What will you do now?" he asked. "I have been looking for work all day," Clara said between bites. "No one needs help, or at least, no one wants to hire a widow with no references." She set down her fork and met his gaze. "I will find something, I have to." "The Double J is a big operation," Adam said thoughtfully. "The owner, Joseph Jefferson, he is always complaining about the lack of decent cooking. The ranch hands do their best, but most of them could burn water. We had a cook, old fellow named Pete, but he retired last month and went to live with his daughter in Cheyenne. Mr. Jefferson has been looking for a replacement." Hope flickered in Clara's chest, fragile as a candle flame. "Do you think he would consider hiring me?" "I could ask," Adam said. "I have worked for him for 5 years now. He trusts my judgment. If I vouch for you, he will at least give you a chance." "Why would you do this for me?" Clara asked, studying his face. "You do not know me." Adam was quiet for a moment, turning his coffee cup in his hands. "A few years back, I was in a bad way. Got thrown from a horse and broke my leg in 2 places. Mr. Jefferson found me and brought me to his ranch, paid for the doctor, gave me a place to recover. He did not have to do any of that. When I asked him why he helped me, he said it is what decent people do for one another. I guess I learned from his example." Clara felt warmth spread through her chest, the first genuine feeling of comfort she had experienced in weeks. "Then I would be grateful for any help you can offer." They finished their meal in companionable silence. Adam paid the bill despite Clara's weak protests, and then they walked to the livery stable where his horse was boarded. The animal was a handsome chestnut gelding with intelligent eyes and a calm temperament. "We will ride out to the ranch now, if you are up for it," Adam said. "It is about an hour's ride. You can sit behind me." Clara had not ridden a horse since before her husband's illness, but she nodded. Adam mounted first, then reached down to help her up. She settled behind him, her arms wrapped around his waist, and tried to ignore how strange it felt to be so close to a man who was not her late husband. The ride to the Double J Ranch took them through rolling hills covered in prairie grass that swayed in the breeze like waves on an ocean. The sky stretched vast and blue above them, dotted with white clouds. Clara had forgotten how beautiful this country could be when she was not consumed with grief and worry. Adam pointed out landmarks as they rode. "That creek there, that is Goose Creek. It runs through the ranch property and never dries up, even in the worst droughts. Those hills to the west, that is where we graze the cattle in summer. Good grass up there." "How many head does Mr. Jefferson run?" Clara asked. "About 3,000, Adam replied. "It is one of the biggest operations in the area. He employs 20 ranch hands year-round, more during roundup and branding season." The ranch came into view as they crested a hill. It was larger than Clara had expected, with a sprawling main house, several outbuildings, a massive barn, and multiple corrals. She could see horses grazing in a nearby pasture and cattle dotting the distant hills. Adam rode up to the main house and dismounted, then helped Clara down. Her legs felt unsteady after the ride, and she smoothed her dusty dress self-consciously. "Wait here," Adam said, bounding up the porch steps. He knocked on the door and disappeared inside. Clara stood in the yard, acutely aware of how out of place she looked. Ranch hands paused in their work to stare at her, and she lifted her chin, refusing to show her discomfort. After a few minutes, Adam emerged with a man in his 50s. Joseph Jefferson was thick-set and barrel-chested, with steel-gray hair and a weathered face that spoke of decades spent outdoors. His eyes were sharp but not unkind as he looked Clara over. "Mrs. Lawson," he said, his voice gruff. "Adam tells me you are looking for work as a cook." "Yes, sir," Clara said, meeting his gaze steadily. "I am a good cook. I can make do with simple ingredients, and I am not afraid of hard work. I can also handle preserving, baking, and managing provisions." "You ever cooked for 20 hungry men?" Jefferson asked. "Not 20 at once," Clara admitted, "but I cooked for harvest crews on my father's farm in Missouri. That was sometimes 15 or 16 men, 3 meals a day during harvest season." Jefferson grunted, considering. "Adam here says you are in a difficult situation. I respect honesty, so I will be plain with you. This job is not easy. The men eat early, usually before dawn, and they want hot food ready when they come in from work. You will have your own cabin near the cookhouse, but you will be expected to keep it clean and manage your own affairs. I pay $30 a month plus room and board. That is fair wages for this area." $30 a month was more than Clara had dared hope for. "That is very generous, sir." "I expect value for my money," Jefferson said. "But if you work hard and keep my men fed, we will get along fine. When can you start?" "Right now, if you need me to," Clara said. A hint of a smile crossed Jefferson's weathered face. "I like your spirit. Adam, show Mrs. Lawson to the cookhouse and the cabin. She can start with supper tonight. Let the men know we have got ourselves a proper cook." Relief flooded through Clara so intensely that her knees went weak. "Thank you, sir. You will not regret this." Jefferson nodded and went back inside. Adam grinned at her, his green eyes bright with pleasure. "Told you he would give you a chance." "I cannot thank you enough," Clara said, her voice thick with emotion. "Come on," Adam said. "Let me show you around." The cookhouse was a long, low building with a massive cast iron stove, multiple work tables, and shelves stocked with flour, beans, salt pork, and other staples. It was well equipped, and Clara felt a surge of satisfaction. She could work with this. The cabin Adam showed her next was small but sturdy, with a bed, a wood stove, a table and chairs, and even a rocking chair by the window. After weeks of uncertainty, having her own space felt like an impossible luxury. "The wash house is just behind the cookhouse," Adam explained. "You will share it with the men, but there is a schedule posted. Women get the morning hours, men use it in the evening. The privy is out back." "This is more than I hoped for," Clara said, setting her small satchel on the bed. Adam shifted his weight, suddenly looking awkward. "I should let you get settled. Supper is usually at 6. The men will be hungry and curious, but they are decent fellows for the most part. Anyone gives you trouble, you let me know." "I can handle myself," Clara said, then softened. "But thank you for everything." After Adam left, Clara sat on the edge of the bed and allowed herself a moment to simply breathe. She had work, a place to sleep, and the promise of regular meals. It was not the life she had imagined when she had married William and set out west, but it was a lifeline when she had been drowning. She stood and returned to the cookhouse, surveying the provisions. There was plenty to work with. She found a large pot and began preparing a beef stew, chopping onions and potatoes with practiced efficiency. She mixed up biscuit dough and set it to rise, then started coffee brewing in a pot large enough to serve an army. As the food cooked, Clara cleaned the work surfaces and organized the supplies. The familiar rhythm of cooking soothed her, and for the first time in weeks, she felt like herself again. At 6 o'clock, the ranch hands began filing into the cookhouse. They were a varied group, young and old, some clean-shaven and others bearded, but all of them dusty and tired from a day's work. They looked at Clara with open curiosity as they found seats at the long tables. Adam was among them, and he caught her eye with an encouraging nod. Clara brought out the stew in a large tureen, along with baskets of hot biscuits and a pot of coffee. The men helped themselves with barely restrained eagerness, and soon the room filled with the sounds of eating and quiet conversation. "This is the best stew I have had in months," one older ranch hand said, his voice carrying across the room. "These biscuits are light as clouds," another added. Clara felt a flush of pride. She might have lost her husband and her home, but she still had her skills and they were valued here. After the meal, several men thanked her personally as they left. Adam lingered after the others had gone, helping her carry dishes to the wash house. "You made quite an impression," he said. "Half the men are already saying you are the best thing that has happened to this ranch in years." Clara laughed, the sound surprising even to herself. "They are just happy to have something besides burnt beans and tough jerky." "Maybe," Adam said, "but I think it is more than that. You have got a gift." They worked in comfortable silence for a while, washing and drying the dishes. Clara was acutely aware of Adam's presence beside her, the easy competence of his movements, the kindness in his eyes. "Can I ask you something?" Clara said as they finished the last of the dishes. "Of course. Why are you not married? A man like you with steady work and good character, I would think every young woman in the county would be interested." Adam chuckled, but there was a hint of sadness in it. "I was engaged once, about 3 years ago. Girl named Sarah. She was a rancher's daughter from over in Buffalo, but when it came down to it, she did not want the life of a ranch wife. She wanted to move back east, live in a city, have fancy things. I could not give her that, and I could not leave this life. So she married a banker and moved to Chicago." "I am sorry," Clara said. Adam shrugged. "It hurt at the time, but now I think it was for the best. We wanted different things. Better to find out before we married than after." They walked back to Clara's cabin together, the evening air cooling pleasantly after the heat of the day. Stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky, bright and numerous in a way they never were in cities. "Get some rest," Adam said at her door. "You have had a long day." "I will," Clara promised. "And Adam, truly thank you. You saved my life today." He tipped his hat to her, a faint smile on his lips. "Sleep well, Clara." She watched him walk away, his tall figure disappearing into the gathering darkness, and felt something shift in her chest. It was too soon to name it, too soon to even acknowledge it fully, but for the first time since William's death, she felt a tiny spark of something that might, eventually, become hope. The weeks that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm. Clara woke before dawn each day to prepare breakfast for the ranch hands. She learned their preferences and their quirks. She discovered that Tom, the oldest hand, could not eat spicy food without terrible indigestion. Young Billy was always hungry and would eat anything put in front of him. Marcus had a sweet tooth and always looked hopefully for dessert. And Adam, she learned, liked his coffee black and strong, preferred cornbread to biscuits, and always thanked her for every meal. She saw him every day, of course, but their interactions were brief and proper. He often helped her with heavy lifting or chopping wood for the stove. Sometimes they talked while he worked, sharing stories of their pasts and observations about ranch life. Clara learned that Adam had grown up on a small farm in Kansas, the youngest of 5 children. His father had died when Adam was 16, and rather than burden his mother and older siblings, he had struck out on his own to find work. He had worked on various ranches throughout Kansas and Nebraska before landing at the Double J 5 years ago. "This is the first place that has felt like home," he told her one afternoon as he stacked firewood outside the cookhouse. "Mr. Jefferson is a fair man and the work is good. I could see myself staying here for the rest of my life." Clara understood the sentiment. Despite the hard work and long hours, she felt more settled than she had in months. The cabin was cozy, the work was satisfying, and she was building friendships with some of the other people who worked on the ranch. She became particularly close with Mary, the wife of the ranch foreman. Mary was a cheerful woman in her 30s with 4 children, and she often visited Clara in the evenings after the supper dishes were done. "It is so nice to have another woman around," Mary said one evening, sitting in Clara's rocking chair while Clara mended some of her work dresses. "I love my children dearly, but sometimes I crave adult conversation." "I am glad for your company," Clara said honestly. "I was worried I would be lonely here." Mary studied her with thoughtful eyes. "You are doing remarkably well, considering all you have been through. Losing a husband so young, that is a terrible burden." Clara's needle paused in its stitching. "I loved William," she said carefully, "but our marriage was brief, and much of it was spent nursing him through illness. I grieve for the life we might have had more than the life we actually shared." "That is honest, at least," Mary said. "And there is no shame in moving forward with your life. You are still young, Clara. You have many years ahead of you." "I feel old," Clara admitted, voicing a thought that had been plaguing her for weeks. "I look in the mirror and see lines that were not there a year ago. I feel tired all the time, tired in a way that sleep does not fix. Sometimes I feel like I am aging faster than I should, like life is wearing me down." Mary leaned forward, her expression serious. "You have been through hardship, that is true, but you are stronger than you know. I have seen you manage that cookhouse like a general commanding troops. You work harder than most men I know. That kind of strength does not come from weakness." Clara smiled faintly. "I suppose I have no choice but to be strong." "We always have a choice," Mary said. "You could have given up. You could have resigned yourself to despair. Instead, you are here, building a new life. That takes courage." That night, Clara thought about Mary's words as she lay in bed. She did feel old, weathered by grief and hardship. But perhaps there was still time, still possibility if she allowed herself to hope. As summer turned to autumn, the air grew crisp, and the leaves on the cottonwood trees along Goose Creek turned gold. The ranch was busy with preparations for winter. Cattle were moved to lower pastures, hay was cut and stored, and provisions were stocked for the long, cold months ahead. Clara worked alongside the men during harvest time, helping to preserve vegetables from the ranch's garden and smoking meat for the winter stores. It was exhausting work, but satisfying in a way that made her fall into bed each night with a sense of accomplishment. Adam was often nearby during these busy weeks, and Clara found herself increasingly aware of his presence. She noticed the way his shirt stretched across his shoulders when he lifted heavy sacks of grain. She caught herself watching the way he interacted with the other men, his easy leadership and quiet competence. And she noticed, too, the way he looked at her sometimes, when he thought she was not paying attention. One crisp October afternoon, Adam found her behind the cookhouse, struggling to repair a broken step on the cabin porch. "Here, let me help," he said, kneeling beside her and taking the hammer from her hand. "You will smash your thumb if you keep it like that." "I am perfectly capable of fixing a step," Clara protested, but she moved aside to let him work. Adam examined the broken board and pulled it free with practiced ease. "I am sure you are capable of most anything you set your mind to," he said, "but that does not mean you have to do everything alone." He retrieved a fresh board from the lumber pile and fitted it into place, securing it with quick, efficient strokes of the hammer. Clara sat on the porch and watched him work, admiring the economy of his movements. "There," he said, testing the step with his weight. "Solid as bedrock." "Thank you," Clara said. Then, impulsively, she added, "Would you like some coffee? I made a fresh pot." Adam's face lit up with a smile. I would love some. They sat on the porch together, sipping coffee and watching the sun sink toward the horizon. The sky was ablaze with orange and pink, and the air smelled of wood smoke and approaching winter. I have been thinking, Adam said after a long, comfortable silence. Winter will be here soon, and the work will slow down some. Mr. Jefferson usually gives the hands a few days off around Christmas. I was wondering if you might like to go into town with me, maybe see if there is a church social or something. Get off the ranch for a bit. Clara's heart began to beat faster. Are you asking to court me, Adam? He set down his coffee cup and turned to face her, his green eyes serious. I suppose I am. If you are not ready, I understand. I know you are still grieving, and I do not want to rush you into anything. But I think you are a remarkable woman, Clara Lawson, and I would like the chance to know you better. Clara felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Part of her wanted to say yes immediately, to embrace this kind, steady man who had shown her such generosity. But another part of her hesitated, afraid of moving too quickly, afraid of dishonoring William's memory. I need to be honest with you, she said slowly. I am not the woman I was before I married William. That life, those dreams, they died with him. I feel like I am aging before my time, Adam. I am tired, so tired, and I worry that I will grow old quickly, that I will be used up before I have had a chance to really live. Adam reached out and took her hand, his calloused palm warm against hers. We all get older, Clara. That is just the way of life. But getting older is not the same as being used up. You have been through hard times, yes, but you are still here, still fighting, still finding ways to laugh and be kind. That is not someone who is used up. That is someone who is surviving. Tears pricked at Clara's eyes. I am afraid, she whispered, afraid of loving again and losing again. I know, Adam said gently. I am afraid too, but I think the risk might be worth it. I cannot promise you an easy life. This is hard country and ranching is hard work. But I can promise you that if you give me a chance, I will do my best to make you happy. I will stand by you through whatever comes. I will grow old beside you if you will let me. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with promise. Clara looked at Adam's earnest face, at the hope and vulnerability in his eyes, and felt something inside her shift and settle. I would like that, she said. I would like to go into town with you at Christmas. I would like to see where this might lead. Adam's smile was brilliant, transforming his whole face. He brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. You will not regret it, Clara. I promise you that. They sat together on the porch until the stars came out, talking quietly about their hopes and dreams, their fears and regrets. And for the first time since William's death, Clara felt like she might have a future worth living. The months between October and Christmas seemed to fly by. Adam and Clara spent what time they could together, though propriety and work demands meant their courtship was slow and careful. They took walks along Goose Creek on Sunday afternoons, attended church together in Sheridan when weather permitted, and talked for hours about everything and nothing. Clara learned more about Adam's character with each passing day. She saw his patience when teaching young Billy how to rope a calf. She witnessed his generosity when he gave his own coat to Tom during an unexpected cold snap. She appreciated his intelligence and his dry sense of humor, which often had her laughing when she least expected it. And she felt herself falling in love with him, slowly and surely, like the turning of the seasons. For his part, Adam was equally attentive. He brought her wildflowers he found on the range. He helped her with the endless work of the cookhouse without being asked. He listened when she talked about William, never showing jealousy or impatience, understanding that her first husband would always be part of her story. I do not want to replace him, Adam told her one evening. I just want to be part of your future. You already are, Clara said, and meant it. Christmas arrived with a fresh blanket of snow and temperatures cold enough to freeze the water in the horse trough solid. True to his word, Mr. Jefferson gave most of the hands a few days off, keeping only a skeleton crew to tend to the animals. Adam borrowed the ranch wagon and drove Clara into Sheridan on Christmas Eve. The town was transformed for the holiday, with evergreen boughs decorating the storefronts and candles glowing in windows. The church was holding a special service and social, and it seemed like half the county had turned out. Clara wore her best dress, a dark blue wool that Mary had helped her alter to fit properly. Adam wore a clean shirt and vest, his hair neatly combed and his boots polished. They looked, Clara thought, like a proper courting couple. The church service was beautiful, with hymns and readings that spoke of hope and new beginnings. Afterwards, the social hall filled with people enjoying cider, cookies, and conversation. Adam introduced Clara to several families he knew, and she was pleased to find herself welcomed warmly into the community. Later in the evening, Adam led her outside to the church steps, where they could see the stars bright and clear in the cold night sky. "I have something for you," Adam said, reaching into his coat pocket. He pulled out a small package wrapped in brown paper and tied with string. Clara opened it carefully to find a beautiful shawl, deep green like the pines on the mountains, with delicate fringe along the edges. "Adam, it is lovely. I saw it in the mercantile and thought of you," he said. "The color reminded me of the dress you wore the day we met." Clara wrapped the shawl around her shoulders, touched by his thoughtfulness. "I have something for you too," she said, handing him a package she had been hiding in her coat. Inside, Adam found a pair of leather gloves, lined with soft fleece and carefully stitched. "Did you make these?" "Mary helped with the pattern, but I did the sewing," Clara admitted. "Your old gloves are so worn, I worried you would freeze your hands this winter." Adam pulled on the gloves, flexing his fingers. "They fit perfectly. They are wonderful. Thank you, Clara." They stood close together, watching their breath mist in the cold air, and Clara felt a contentment she had not experienced in longer than she could remember. "Clara," Adam said, his voice low and serious, "I know we have only been courting for a few months, but I need you to know that my intentions are honorable. When the time is right, when you are ready, I want to marry you. I want to build a life with you, have a family with you, grow old with you. I know you are worried about aging quickly, about being worn down by life, but I promise you, I will be there beside you every step of the way. We will grow old together." Clara's eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of joy this time. "I want that too," she said. "More than I ever thought I would want anything again." Adam cupped her face in his gloved hands and kissed her, gentle and sweet and full of promise. It was Clara's first kiss since William had died, and it felt like coming home and starting a new adventure all at once. The winter months were hard but happy. Clara continued her work at the cookhouse, and Adam worked with the other hands to keep the cattle fed and healthy through the deep snows. They saw each other daily, their bond growing stronger with each shared smile and quiet conversation. In March, as the snow began to melt and the first hints of spring appeared, Adam asked Clara to marry him properly, going down on one knee in front of the cookhouse with a simple gold band. "It was my grandmother's," he explained. "My mother sent it to me when I wrote and told her about you. She said she would be honored if you would wear it." Clara said yes through happy tears, and they were married in Sheridan's church 6 weeks later, with Mary standing up as Clara's matron of honor and Tom serving as Adam's best man. Mr. Jefferson attended, along with most of the ranch hands and half the town. After the ceremony, there was a celebration at the ranch with food, music, and dancing. Clara wore a cream-colored dress that Mary and several other women from town had helped her sew, and Adam wore a new suit that made him look impossibly handsome. As they danced together under strings of lanterns hung between the barn and the cookhouse, Adam pulled her close and whispered, "Happy, Mrs. Rivers." "Happier than I ever thought I could be," Clara whispered back. Mr. Jefferson had given them the use of a small house on the far edge of the ranch property as a wedding gift. It was nothing fancy, just 2 rooms and a loft, but it was theirs. Adam had spent weeks fixing it up, repairing the roof, replacing rotted boards, and building new furniture. Clara had sewn curtains and brought in wildflowers to brighten the rooms. Their wedding night was tender and sweet. Adam was gentle with Clara, patient and kind, understanding that while she had been married before, this was a new beginning for both of them. They lay together afterwards, Clara's head on Adam's chest, listening to his heartbeat steady and strong beneath her ear. "I love you," she said, the words coming easily. "I love you too," Adam replied, kissing the top of her head. "I will love you for the rest of my life." Clara continued to cook for the ranch hands, though she now had Adam to help her with the heavy work. He would often wake before dawn with her, building up the fire in the cookhouse stove and hauling water while she mixed biscuits and fried bacon. They worked together with the easy rhythm of a team, anticipating each other's needs without speaking. The other hands teased Adam good-naturedly about being domesticated, but he took it with good humor. "I am smart enough to know when I've got it good," he would say, which always made Clara smile. As spring turned to summer, Clara began to notice changes in her body. At first, she attributed the fatigue to her usual hard work, but when the nausea started, she realized what was happening. She was pregnant. She told Adam one evening as they sat on the porch of their little house, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. A baby. Adam's face went through a series of emotions: shock, disbelief, and then pure, radiant joy. "We are going to have a baby." "In the late winter, if my calculations are right," Clara said, a bit nervously. "Are you happy?" Adam gathered her into his arms, holding her close. "Happy does not even begin to cover it. You have given me everything I ever wanted, Clara. A home, a family, a purpose. I could not ask for more." But as the pregnancy progressed, Clara's earlier fears began to resurface. The work was exhausting, and she felt herself growing tired more quickly than she thought she should. Her body ached constantly, and she could see new lines forming around her eyes when she looked in the mirror. One afternoon in early autumn, she broke down crying while trying to knead bread dough. Mary, who had stopped by to visit, found her weeping at the cookhouse table. "What is wrong?" Mary asked, immediately concerned. "I am falling apart," Clara said miserably. "I am only 25 years old, Mary, but I feel ancient. My back hurts all the time, my hands are already getting rough and worn, and I am so tired. I look at myself and I see an old woman. I'm afraid I will grow old quickly, that I will be used up before our child is even grown." Mary sat beside her and took her hands. "You are pregnant and working harder than any woman should have to. Of course you are tired, but that does not mean you are falling apart. It means you need help." "I do not want to be a burden," Clara protested. "You are not a burden. You are a human being with limitations, same as everyone else." Mary stood decisively. "I am going to talk to Mr. Jefferson. It is time he hired some help for the cookhouse. You cannot keep doing all this work alone, especially now." "Mary, you do not have to do that." "Yes, I do. You are my friend, and I will not watch you work yourself into the ground." True to her word, Mary spoke to Mr. Jefferson, who immediately agreed that Clara needed assistance. Within a week, he had hired a young man named Charlie to help with the heavy work in the cookhouse, and a woman named Ruth to assist with cooking and cleaning. With the additional help, Clara found herself able to rest more. She still supervised the cooking and planned the menus, but she was no longer doing all the physical labor herself. The exhaustion began to ease, and some of her energy returned. Adam was attentive and protective, insisting she not lift anything heavy and bringing her small treats when he came in from work. He would rub her aching feet in the evenings and read to her from the newspaper he picked up in town. "You are taking such good care of me," Clara said one night, curled up beside him in their bed. "It is my job to take care of you," Adam said simply. "Just like it is your job to take care of that little one you are growing. We are a team, remember." Winter arrived early that year, with snow falling in November and temperatures dropping well below freezing. Clara grew rounder, her pregnancy now obvious to everyone. The ranch women brought her baby clothes they had sewn and advice they had accumulated over years of childbearing. In late February, on a night when the wind howled outside and snow piled in deep drifts, Clara went into labor. Mary came to stay with her, along with the town's midwife, a capable woman named Judith. Adam paced outside in the main room, nearly wearing a path in the floorboards. Tom and Billy had come to keep him company, bringing a bottle of whiskey and a deck of cards, though Adam was too nervous to do more than pretend to play. The labor was long and difficult. Clara had never experienced such pain, and there were moments when she was certain she could not endure another minute. But Mary held her hand and Judith coached her through each contraction, and somehow she found the strength to keep going. Finally, as dawn broke over the snow-covered prairie, Clara gave birth to a healthy baby boy. He came into the world screaming lustily, his face red and his fists waving. "You have a son," Judith announced, wrapping the baby in a clean blanket and placing him in Clara's arms. Clara looked down at the tiny, perfect face and felt a love so overwhelming it took her breath away. "Hello, little one," she whispered. Adam was allowed in a few minutes later. He approached the bed slowly, almost reverently, his eyes fixed on the baby in Clara's arms. "A son," Clara said, smiling up at him through exhausted tears. "We have a son, Adam." Adam sat carefully on the edge of the bed and reached out to touch the baby's tiny hand. The infant's fingers curled around Adam's calloused index finger, and Clara watched her husband's face transform with wonder. "He is perfect," Adam breathed. "You are perfect. Thank you, Clara. Thank you for this gift." They named him William Joseph Rivers, after both Clara's first husband and Mr. Jefferson. Little William, or Will as they called him, was a healthy, happy baby with his father's green eyes and his mother's dark hair. The first months of parenthood were exhausting but joyful. Clara had worried she might feel overwhelmed, but instead she found herself energized by motherhood. Yes, there were sleepless nights and endless feedings, but there was also Will's first smile, his first laugh, the way he lit up when Adam came home from work each day. Adam was a devoted father. He would hold Will for hours, singing soft cowboy ballads and telling the baby stories about the ranch. He changed diapers without complaint and took night feedings whenever he could to let Clara rest. "You are so good with him," Clara said one evening, watching Adam rock their son to sleep. "He is my boy," Adam said simply. "I want him to know he is loved, that he is wanted. I want to give him everything I never had growing up." As Will grew from an infant to a toddler, the little house seemed to shrink. Adam began making plans for an addition, working in his spare time to build 2 more rooms onto the back of the house. Clara, feeling stronger and more settled than she had in years, returned to supervising the cookhouse with Ruth's continued help. She found that she enjoyed the work more when it did not consume all her energy, and she had time now to experiment with new recipes and teach Ruth some of her special techniques. On their second wedding anniversary, Adam presented Clara with a gift. It was a small wooden chest, beautifully crafted and polished to a warm shine. "I made it for you," he said. "I thought you could use it to store special things, keepsakes and such." Clara opened the chest to find it lined with soft fabric. Inside, Adam had placed a few items: a pressed wildflower from one of their early walks together, a ribbon from her wedding bouquet, and a photograph they had taken on their wedding day. "It is beautiful," Clara said, running her fingers over the smooth wood. "You made this." "I have been working on it in the barn when I had spare time," Adam admitted. "I wanted to give you something special, something that would last." Clara kissed him, pouring all her love and gratitude into the gesture. "You have given me so much more than a beautiful box, Adam. You have given me a life I never thought I would have. You have given me hope and joy and a family. You saved me when I was at my lowest, and you have kept your promise. You are growing old beside me, and I could not ask for a better companion." "We are not so very old yet," Adam said with a smile. "We have got a lot of years ahead of us still." And they did. The years passed in a blur of seasons and milestones. Will grew into a bright, energetic boy who loved the ranch and followed his father everywhere. When he was 3, Clara became pregnant again, and this time she felt more prepared, more confident in her ability to handle whatever came. Their daughter, Rosemary Rivers, was born on a bright spring morning, arriving so quickly that Judith barely made it in time. She was a tiny, delicate baby with Adam's green eyes and a head full of blonde curls that seemed to come from nowhere in either family tree. "She is going to be a heartbreaker," Tom predicted when he came to meet the new baby. "Mark my words, that one will have every young man in the county lining up when she comes of age." Will was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to hold her and help with everything. Clara taught him to be gentle, and he took his role as big brother very seriously. Life settled into a new rhythm with 2 children. The house additions Adam had built proved invaluable, giving the children their own room and Clara and Adam a bit of privacy. The ranch continued to prosper, and Mr. Jefferson, who had grown quite fond of Clara and Adam, gave Adam more responsibilities and better pay. When Will was 6 and Rose was 3, Adam and Clara sat down one evening after the children were asleep and talked seriously about their future. "I have been thinking," Adam said, "about buying some land of our own. Mr. Jefferson has mentioned he might be willing to sell me a parcel on the north end of the ranch, about 200 acres. It would take most of our savings, but we could build our own place, run some cattle of our own. I could still work for the ranch, but we would have something that is truly ours." Clara considered this carefully. "It would be hard work, building a new place while still managing our responsibilities here." "It would," Adam agreed, "but I think we could do it. We have always worked well together, and I want our children to have something to inherit, a legacy they can be proud of." "Then let us do it," Clara said. "Let us build something of our own." They approached Mr. Jefferson the next day, and he was amenable to the idea. He drew up papers selling them 200 acres at a fair price, with payment to be made over 5 years. The land included a good water source, decent grazing, and a spot sheltered by trees that would be perfect for building. For the next 2 years, Adam spent every spare moment working on their new home. He recruited help from the other ranch hands, and together they built a sturdy house with 4 bedrooms, a large kitchen, and a wraparound porch. Clara helped when she could, contributing ideas for the layout and sewing curtains and bedding for each room. They moved into the new house just before Will's 8th birthday. Standing on the porch of their own home on their own land, Clara felt a sense of accomplishment that brought tears to her eyes. "We did it," she said to Adam, who stood beside her with his arm around her waist. "We did," he agreed. "This is ours, Clara, all of it. Our land, our home, our future." That night, after the children were asleep in their new bedrooms, Clara and Adam sat on their porch and looked up at the stars. "You remember what I said to you, that day on the ranch when you first asked to court me?" Clara asked. "You said a lot of things," Adam replied with a smile. "I said I would grow old quickly, that I was tired and worn down. I was so afraid that life had used me up, that I had nothing left to give." "I remember," Adam said quietly. "I was wrong," Clara said, taking his hand. "Or maybe I was right, but it did not matter. Because you meant what you said when you promised to grow old beside me. We have grown older together, Adam. We have built a life together, and I am not afraid anymore." Adam brought her hand to his lips and kissed it, just as he had done all those years ago on the ranch porch. "I will always keep that promise, Clara. No matter how many years we are blessed with, I will be beside you for every one of them." The years continued to pass, bringing both joys and challenges. Will grew into a tall, capable young man who loved ranching as much as his father did. Rose became a beautiful, spirited girl who could ride as well as any of the ranch hands and had a gift for gentling horses. Clara continued to cook, though now it was primarily for her own family rather than a whole ranch. She taught Rose everything she knew about running a household, and she watched with pride as her daughter grew into a competent, confident young woman. Adam built up their small herd of cattle, working long hours but always making time for his family. He taught Will everything he knew about ranching, horsemanship, and the land. And every evening, no matter how tired he was, he made sure to spend time with Rose, listening to her chatter about her day and her dreams. When Will was 18, he began courting a girl from town, the daughter of the mercantile owner. Her name was Elizabeth, and she was sweet and hardworking. Clara liked her immediately, seeing in the young woman some of her own determination and strength. Will and Elizabeth married the following year in a ceremony that reminded Clara poignantly of her own wedding to Adam. As she watched her son pledge his life to his new wife, she felt the circle of life turning, the next generation beginning their own journey. Adam squeezed her hand during the ceremony, and she looked up to find him watching her with love in his eyes. His hair was starting to gray at the temples now, and there were lines around his eyes from years of squinting into the sun. He looked older, yes, but also solid and strong, weathered like the mountains themselves. She knew she looked older too. Her dark hair had streaks of silver, and her hands were work-worn and rough, but she no longer feared aging. She had learned that growing old was not about becoming used up or worn out. It was about accumulating years of love and experience, about building a life of meaning and purpose. Will and Elizabeth settled on a piece of land adjacent to Adam and Clara's property, building their own home and starting their own herd. Within 2 years, they made Clara and Adam grandparents with the birth of a baby girl they named Clara Elizabeth. Holding her tiny granddaughter for the first time, Clara felt her heart expand with a love she had not known was possible. "Hello, little Clara," she whispered. "Welcome to the world." Rose showed no interest in settling down, much to the frustration of several young men in the area. She was content helping her father with the ranch and training horses, which she had discovered a real talent for. People came from all over the county to have Rose Rivers work with their difficult horses. "I am not ready to be tied down," Rose told her mother when Clara gently asked about her plans. "There is too much I want to do first." "That is fine, sweetheart," Clara assured her. "Take your time. The right person will come along when you are ready." On their 20th wedding anniversary, Adam surprised Clara with a trip to Cheyenne. They took the train, leaving the ranch in Will's capable hands, and spent 3 days in the city. They stayed in a real hotel with running water and gas lamps. They ate in restaurants and attended a theatrical performance. They walked through parks and shopped in stores filled with goods from back east. It was exciting and different, but by the third day, Clara was ready to go home. "Too much noise," she said to Adam as they boarded the train back to Sheridan. "Too many people. Give me wide, open spaces and clean air any day." Adam laughed and pulled her close. "I feel exactly the same way, but it was a good adventure." "It was," Clara agreed. "Thank you for bringing me." As they rode the train home, watching the familiar landscape roll by outside the window, Clara reflected on how far they had come. 20 years ago, she had been a desperate widow with nothing but grief and exhaustion. Now she was a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a landowner. She had built a life rich with meaning and love. "What are you thinking about?" Adam asked. "Everything," Clara said. "How blessed we have been. How grateful I am that you found me that day in Sheridan, half-starved and hopeless." "I am the blessed one," Adam said. "You have given me everything that matters, Clara. You, the children, our home, our life together. I could not have asked for more." Back at home, life continued its steady rhythm. The seasons turned, the cattle thrived, and the family grew. Will and Elizabeth had 2 more children, boys this time. Rose eventually did meet someone who captured her heart, a quiet veterinarian who appreciated her independent spirit. They married when Rose was 24 and built a house on yet another parcel of the growing family property. Mr. Jefferson passed away when Adam was 45, leaving the ranch to his nephew. The new owner was not as capable or fair as Jefferson had been, and many of the old hands left to find work elsewhere. Adam, with his own successful operation now, was able to hire several of them, including old Tom, who had become more like family than employee over the years. Clara's hair turned completely silver, and Adam's went gray as well. They moved a bit slower than they used to, and certain tasks took longer than they once had. But they were healthy and active, still working side by side as they had always done. On a warm summer evening when Clara was 50 and Adam was 51, they sat together on their porch swing, watching the sun set over their land. Their grandchildren were playing in the yard, their laughter carrying on the evening breeze. "I have been thinking about that conversation we had all those years ago," Adam said, "when you said you would grow old quickly." "I remember," Clara said, resting her head on his shoulder. "You were right in a way," Adam said. "We have grown old. Look at us, silver-haired and creaky-jointed. But we have grown old together, just like I promised, and I would not change a single thing." Clara lifted her head to look at him, this man who had saved her life and then shared his with her. "Neither would I." Every gray hair, every wrinkle, every ache and pain, they are all proof of the life we have lived. And it has been a good life, Adam, better than I ever dreamed possible. Adam kissed her, sweet and tender despite the decades between this kiss and their first. "I love you, Clara Rivers. I have loved you from the moment I caught you falling in that dusty street, and I will love you until my last breath." "And I love you," Clara said. "Thank you for keeping your promise. Thank you for growing old beside me." They sat together as the stars came out, their hands intertwined, their hearts as connected as they had been on their wedding day. Around them, their family laughed and played, the legacy of their love made manifest. The years continued to pass, bringing more grandchildren and eventually great-grandchildren. Will took over more of the ranch operations as Adam slowed down, and Rose's horse training business became known throughout Wyoming and beyond. Clara finally stopped cooking for others when she turned 60, content to prepare meals just for Adam and herself, and for the family gatherings that happened with increasing frequency. She took up quilting, creating beautiful works of art that she gave to each grandchild when they married. Adam remained active well into his 60s, still riding out to check cattle and mend fences, though he let the younger men handle the hardest physical labor. He built cradles for each new great-grandchild and spent long hours telling the children stories of the old days. When Clara was 68 and Adam 69, they celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary with a party that brought together 3 generations of family. The house was full of noise and laughter, children running everywhere, and so much food that the table groaned under its weight. That evening, after everyone had gone home and the house was quiet again, Clara and Adam sat on their porch swing one more time. 50 years, Clara marveled. It seems impossible. It feels like just yesterday that you were helping me fix that broken step, asking if I wanted coffee. Best coffee I ever had, Adam said with a smile, though not as sweet as the woman who made it. You are still a charmer, Clara said, but she was smiling too. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars and listening to the familiar sounds of their land. The distant lowing of cattle, the whisper of wind through the grass, the hoot of an owl in the cottonwoods. Are you happy, Clara? Adam asked. Truly happy. More than I ever thought possible, Clara said honestly. When I think about that desperate, exhausted woman who stumbled into Sheridan all those years ago, I can hardly believe she was me. She thought her life was over. She thought she had nothing left to give and nothing to look forward to. But she was wrong, Adam said. She was so wrong, Clara agreed, because she had not met you yet. She did not know that the best part of her life was just beginning. She could not imagine this. Clara gestured to the house, the land, the evidence of the life they had built together. She could not imagine being this happy. I am glad I could prove her wrong, Adam said, pulling her close. They sat together until the moon rose high in the sky. 2 people who had grown old together, who had kept their promises to one another, who had built something lasting and beautiful out of hardship and hope. Several more years passed in peace and contentment. Adam's health remained good until he was 73, when he caught pneumonia during a particularly harsh winter. Clara nursed him through it, sitting by his bedside for days, but his lungs never fully recovered. He remained weak and breathless, unable to do the physical work he loved. It was hard for Adam to accept his limitations, but Clara helped him find new ways to contribute. He taught the great-grandchildren to whittle and tell stories. He kept the ranch's books and gave advice to Will on managing the operation. And he spent long, peaceful hours with Clara, talking about their lives and their memories. When Adam was 75, he grew sick again. This time, the doctor warned Clara that he likely would not recover. She called the family together, and they came from all over, filling the house with their presence. Adam spent his last days surrounded by the people he loved, holding Clara's hand and smiling at the chaos and joy of his extended family. He told each of his children and grandchildren that he loved them. He held his great-grandchildren and blessed them. And he spent long, quiet hours with Clara, sometimes talking, sometimes just being together. On a quiet spring morning, with Clara beside him and sunlight streaming through the window, Adam took his last breath. His passing was peaceful, his face serene. Clara sat with him for a long time afterward, holding his hand and remembering. 52 years they had been married. 52 years of growing old together, just as he had promised. The family gathered for Adam's funeral, and it seemed like half of Wyoming came to pay their respects. Adam had been well loved and well respected, known for his fairness, his kindness, and his unwavering devotion to his family. They buried him on a hill overlooking their land, with a simple stone that read, Adam James Rivers, beloved husband, father, and grandfather, he kept his promises. After the funeral, Clara's children tried to convince her to come live with one of them. "You should not be alone, Mother," Will said, but Clara shook her head. "I am not ready to leave this place yet. This is where I lived with your father. This is where we built our life together. I need to be here a while longer." They understood, though they worried. Rose came to stay with her mother for several weeks, making sure she was eating and taking care of herself. But eventually, even Rose had to return to her own family. Clara found comfort in the familiar routines of her home. She cooked simple meals, tended her garden, and spent long hours on the porch swing, remembering. She missed Adam with an ache that never quite went away, but she did not regret a single moment they had shared. She lived alone in the house for 3 more years, remaining healthy and active well into her 70s. Her children and grandchildren visited often, and she was never truly lonely. But she was ready when the time came. On a warm summer evening much like the one when she and Adam had celebrated their 50th anniversary, Clara sat on her porch swing and watched the sun set. She felt tired, but it was a good tired, the tiredness of a life well lived. She thought about the frightened young widow who had collapsed in the street all those years ago, certain that life had used her up. She thought about Adam catching her, feeding her, giving her hope when she had none. She thought about their courtship, their marriage, their children and grandchildren. She thought about growing old beside the man she loved, and how that promise had been the greatest gift anyone had ever given her. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Clara closed her eyes and smiled. She had lived a good life, a full life, a life rich with love and meaning. And now, finally, she was ready to rest. They found her the next morning, still on the porch swing, looking peaceful and content. The family mourned, but they also celebrated a life that had been long and happy and full of love. They buried Clara beside Adam on the hill overlooking their land. Her stone read, "Clara Lawson Rivers, beloved wife, mother, and grandmother, she found her home." The property remained in the family, passed down through the generations. Will's children and grandchildren continued to ranch the land, maintaining the legacy that Adam and Clara had built together. And sometimes, on warm summer evenings, family members sitting on the old porch swing would swear they could feel a presence, peaceful and content, as if 2 people who had grown old together were still there, watching over the land they loved and the family they had created. The story of Adam and Clara became family legend, told and retold to each new generation. It was a story of hope rising from despair, of promises kept, of 2 people who found each other at exactly the right moment and built a life that lasted beyond their years. It was a story of growing old together, of facing life's challenges side by side, of love that deepened and strengthened with each passing year. And it was a reminder that sometimes, when everything seems lost, when you are certain you have nothing left to give, that is exactly when life has something beautiful waiting for you. All you have to do is be brave enough to reach out and take it.